Alright, let me know if you can see me and hear me in horizontal now. All I wanted to do was go live and cook some stuff. You know? That's it. It's Sunday. It's almost noon. Thank you for confirming that you can see and hear me and that we are horizontal. So what I've discovered is that on my Pixel 6a, when I set up the live, it doesn't give me an option to set the live vertically or horizontally. But when I do it on my Pixel 2 XL, which is what we're streaming on, there is an option for vertical and horizontal. And the problem was that because this one didn't give me the option, it defaulted to vertical, which is what YouTube is recommending now. I guess they're trying to compete with TikTok, so they want everything vertical. And when I tried to set it up on the 2XL, where I did have the option for vertical or horizontal, every time I selected horizontal, it wouldn't let me go live. It would just like keep giving me the spinning wheel of death. So now that you know, it could be my phone is old, it could be that my software is out of date, or it could just be that YouTube is doing a push for vertical content because everyone's trying to be TikTok now, and I'm so tired of this, guys. But I'm happy to see you. We're gonna Instant Pot some soup with some leftovers. I'll catch you up a bit about my boring life, if you'd like. And I have some leftover chili chocolate stout beer that I'm trying to see if we can make like a chocolate dessert out of. I brought it to a friend's gathering. We all tasted it. None of us really liked stout, but I didn't want to waste it. So we're going to see if we can make stuff with it. You think it's data saturation? Okay, that's possible too. I don't know what it is anymore, guys. I think we are just oversaturated as a society in general. And we have some trash piling up, so that's how my mental state is. You can keep track of my mental state depending on how big the recycling and plastic pile builds up. And there we have. Let me switch the light source. Okay, so we are now a little bit better lit, and we are going to be rinsing off this green that I got from the farmer's market that I've never cooked before, but it's very cute. It's very soft. The leaves are like almost velvety, and it's called papalo. This is a photo from the farmer's market. Papalo is a Mexican herb alternative to cilantro. It helps reduce swelling in joints, lowers blood pressure, and can help with stomach disorders. Everything that I need, probably, except for blood pressure, but maybe. Some find it improves the flavor of tacos and typical Mexican salsas and soups. So I have some salmon broth, carrots, frozen tofu that's been defrosted, and some black-eyed peas. The reason why I have salmon soup is because Memo was throwing up last week, like 2 days in a row, and I thought he was maybe experiencing some sort of dehydration or heat stroke because it was really hot in New York, which is another reason why I didn't go live last week, because it was just really hot. I wasn't cooking anything. I was like out of energy for the most part. And so I decided to go out and buy some chicken and some salmon so we can make some salmon broth and chicken broth for him, and maybe some meat for him to eat because he was rejecting all of the cheaper canned foods. He's now only onto the most expensive fancy feasts. And it turns out what works for one cat does not work for another cat. Fred would have jumped on homemade salmon and chicken soup. Memo sniffed it, licked it, walked away. And it fucking broke my heart. And it was so hot that day and I was so frustrated. And I had my first argument with Memo where I was just like heartbroken and angry and frustrated and worried. Honestly, driving all of the negative emotions is just like worry and guilt that I wasn't taking care of him enough. But I've been eating the leftovers of the salmon and chicken soup because Memo has rejected it. So we're going to make some salmon, tofu, bean, and papalo soup in the Instant Pot so that we don't heat up the entire apartment. you started following me on Instagram, that platform has really gone downhill. Everything goes downhill, you know? Everything goes downhill, which is why I'm trying to not take anything too seriously. And last week I also didn't go live because I was hitting like, what was last week? Last week was like the second to third week of my breakup, so I was just kind of processing a lot of that. You know, the first week is just mostly shock. And then you enter the stage where you're just like trying to figure things out of where things went wrong. And then the next stage after that is trying to understand and comfort yourself with some lessons from a relationship that is no longer. And that's what I've been doing. And I feel like my brain's made some progress. I'm not talking about Tuna the cat, I'm talking about Memo the cat. Memo is my new adopted cat. Yes, I do have AC, I don't use it unless I am extremely, extremely hot, or Memo is extremely, extremely hot, so we did turn it on a couple of days last week. Yeah, you guys missed a lot. It's okay, you can watch the previous lives. I'm not gonna go back and reiterate my relationship history every time I go live, but those who watch, know. And those who don't watch, I don't owe you nothing. But soup first. Okay, so let's think about, so this is my first time cooking with papalo. Let me show you the leaves. And they're very smooth and cute and velvety. They kind of look like they came out of like a Miyazaki movie. Oh yeah, and they smell a little bit like spinachy, a little bit lemony. What else? Ooh, oh wow, the smells are like ripe once you start crushing it. They smell a little bit like light incense. Okay, this is gonna be extremely good in the soup, I'm thinking. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna save some of the most tender ones for smoothies later on in the week, and then I'll cook the stalks, which are kind of fibrous, yeah, and some of the bruisier leaves. Let's take it out of here first. Ooh, that is a delicious vegetable. Very cool. So yes, going to the farmer's market is like a life highlight now. And just learning about new vegetables every time I go has been pretty exciting. I've been buying some celery, $4 for this bunch of very leafy, skinny celery, and I've been using it in my smoothies. It's been pretty good. Just going to start washing all of them. All right, let me pull the chat up so I can see what you guys are all saying. So yeah, just a little bit of a review. I broke up with Aaron in 2021, for those of you who don't know. And I've been on Hinge dating since October 2022, which is when I got fired. And it's been like 3 rounds of Hinge so far. And every round I've learned much about myself and other people and communicating. I've been in 2 relationships since I broke up with Aaron. The first one lasted about 9 months. The second one just ended top of the month this month. It lasted almost on the dot 3 months. So yeah, I've been also thinking about like to what extent I might be autistic, or maybe just have autistic patterns and traits of, especially when it comes to like socializing with people, the things that cause, you know, misunderstanding and bad feelings. I've been talking with my friend Daisuke about, you know, living as an autistic person and what kinds of thought patterns usually happen. And it's been illuminating for me a lot. It's been really helpful to talk with someone who has that experience firsthand. And he was also late diagnosed. So that has also been very illuminating for me to learn about as well. My computer's probably going to run out of battery because I did not plan very well today. How dare they fire me? So sweet of you, but that's how capitalism works, and I did not expect it to happen the way it did, but I fully expected it to happen given what I was doing, which was bringing up issues about what was wrong in the workplace and very vocally unionizing, and also refusing to do a TV show after they sicked HR on me. So it makes sense. From a capital point of view, I was no longer a productive cog, and because they could no longer squeeze, you know, the labor they wanted to squeeze out of me, they let me go, which checks out, guys. It's not an anomaly. It's just how the system functions. I think once we acknowledge that, we can stop being so surprised that shit like this happens. I'm not the first, I'm not the last. You just happen to know me and know my story. So there it is. Yeah, it is illegal for them to fire me for union activity, which is why they didn't fire me technically for union activity. They fired me for ruining their business relationship with A&E, which is kind of silly. A&E was the company that they wanted me to do the TV show with, but A&E is also 50% owned by Hearst. So, you know, it's just like layers of sketchiness that I didn't want to deal with anymore, especially after they started punishing me through HR. And it was hilarious because they were accusing me of bullying my manager as they were using HR to bully me by basically silencing me. They told me that I was being unprofessional in the workplace and that I was using, like vulgar language, but the vulgar language that they pointed out was on my personal social media, where I had posts that said, "fuck Hearst." And I said, hey, it's my personal social media, which says nothing in my bio about being a Delish employee, like the workplace. And they basically deflected the question, and they refused to let my union rep really talk for me in the meeting. And they basically started shutting us down every time we had a rebuttal going. So this is the way that capital works. I think we just have to acknowledge that this is the way that capital works. And think about our choices within the system. The limited choices that we do have, we do still have them. And so my choice was to speak out and to deal with the consequences, and the consequences turned out to be getting fired, and I was fine with that. Honestly, it aligned with me, and I was proud of myself for doing what I did. And was it smart? Maybe not, but what is smart anyway, you know? So just whatever you can afford to do that feels good to you, I encourage you to do it, right? Because doing what you want to do is such a luxury in a system like capitalism. It threatens you at every turn to not do what you want to do, to betray yourself, because that is how it turns you into a unit of production, pure production, and nothing else. So we get to a certain point where we start to lose our own sense of self and value and identity, because we are given this narrative of, well, you can't do anything else but follow the system, because otherwise you will become homeless and you won't have food on the table, which is all true, right? But at the time, my mom had just passed away. I had lost a big part of my, you know, like life meaning in a lot of ways, because seeing death that close to you really shakes you up a little bit. And, you know, I had more of a financial security net because my dead mom basically died very unexpectedly, and I had her money as a form of encouragement to like live life truer to myself than she afforded herself. So that's what I did, and I'm here now. Welcome. I hope you're all caught up. Are you all caught up? This shirt is from Beijing. I've had it since I was in elementary school. Really fun. A piece of history. YouTube might be one of the ways to actually be more independent. Yes. Ooh, happy retirement. Congratulations. YouTube is something to, you know, be on the path to independence, but I think I've spoken on this topic before. Keep in mind that you have to play by YouTube's rules, right? What they call community guidelines are basically gag orders in disguise. Again, it is all part of capitalism. So whatever does not serve capital will be rejected. So if I talk about Palestine, it will be rejected. I will get flagged, I will get demonetized for various reasons. They won't say that's why, but you'll know. The signs will check out. Something that I've been learning in dating is that people can say one thing and do another. They can say one thing while knowing that they mean another. And some people will also say one thing not knowing that they meant another, in which case they end up, you know, miscommunicating, but not intentionally to you. It might just actually be a coping mechanism for themselves to not have their reality shaken up so much. I get it. It has been fascinating to learn about people and myself. I can never learn about someone else without also learning something about me too, because we are constantly interpreting others from our own perspective. So, all in all, I've been productive, just not in the capitalistic sense. I've been very productive in thinking about the world and observing it and learning about it and myself and understanding my place in it. And now we're cooking soup. This smells so good. It smells fruity. I don't know what fruit, but it should be a fruit if it's not yet. So one thing that occurred to me maybe just yesterday and today was when I first started seeing my most recent ex, I was talking a lot about my previous relationship and what I've been thinking about and ruminating on in terms of like how I can possibly hurt people when I'm in relationships. And one of the first things that I remember him saying to me on one of our earliest dates was, I don't think you should think about those things anymore. And I said, why? They might be totally valid. Like, maybe I am an inconsiderate person. And maybe I need to be more aware of the ways in which I hurt other people. And I think his messaging on various occasions were, it's more about them and less about you, what they say to you. Which is fascinating now, in hindsight, as I process this breakup. In thinking about what might have been actually the ways in which I've triggered him to think about himself, not just hurting him because of my actions, but hurting him because of my way of making him question himself and his identity. Obviously, I don't know what it feels like from his point of view, but this has been a very fascinating thing for me to ruminate on, but not in a completely self-destructive spiraling way, just in a way, you know? I currently work part-time for Burlap and Barrel, the spice company, and that is my main source of income right now. I am making enough money to pay my living expenses and bills for the most part, and I am maybe digging into my savings from time to time to make some more willy-nilly purchases, but even on that low amount of income, I do not qualify for Medicaid under New York State terms. So, very fascinating to understand what our system considers poor enough. Hi, Siobhan. Yeah, a lot of you have been worried. Like, someone really sweet just reached out to me on Instagram, like maybe this month or last month, and they were like, let me know if you need support in any way. I'm happy to help, like, especially financially. And I was like, that's really sweet, but I'm set. You guys have been so just openly generous with me. I still remember the January right after I got fired. I was like lusting after these Birkenstock boots, and like everybody just started Venmoing me money to buy these completely frivolous boots. But thank you for your kindness, and thank you for joining me on this journey to nowhere, but hopefully it's a fun ride. No, Medicaid doesn't look at your assets. Medicaid is based solely on income. Food stamps, or what was previously known as food stamps, the SNAP program, that does look at your assets. How much do I get when people order from Burlap and Barrel? If you use the referral link in my description box, I get 10% kickback. You don't get any discount whatsoever. I just leave it in there in case people are clicking into it and curious about it, but I don't think anyone's ordered from my link in a few months, maybe like half a year at this point, which I don't rely on it as a source of income. Obs. NYC is technically not my hometown because I was born in Beijing, but NYC, I think, just practically speaking, is my hometown because the Beijing that I remember no longer exists. My childhood home was in a hutong, one of those alleyways that they've like since pretty much raised down across the board to make room for high rises or just, you know, small residential buildings. And also, I am not Chinese enough anymore to feel like I belong there. When I went back in 2011 to be on a teaching fellowship for a year, I felt so out of place, and I felt like an intense amount of reverse culture shock. So yeah, if there is a place that I can call my hometown, I guess New York is it now. But I kind of feel like my entire life has been spent in no man's land of sorts. Okay, so we have a lot of greens in here. We have some reserved for smoothieing throughout the week. This whole bunch was $3 if you're curious about price points. I am not a recipe developer for them. I write their newsletters, and I currently also started working on their collaborations team. There's no real recipe developer on the Burlap and Barrel team. It's a very small company. Most employees are part-time, and everybody just kind of does like a all hands on deck when we need stuff sometimes, so especially when it comes to recipes. It's more so just, hey, we need some recipes for the Spice Club pamphlet. Who wants to develop? And people will kind of offer to come up with their own recipes. It's cool. It's like a very cute environment. As far as making money in a system of capitalism, this is probably as far as I can be aligned within my values, employment lines. Don't buy more spices if you have so many of them. I'm not recommending you to buy spices just for the sake of buying spices. Use up what you got first, which is actually what I'm trying to do right now in my pantry. I've started curtailing my grocery store purchases to just perishables, and I've been trying to cook through all of my pantry staples, because I think I might be like entering a new stage of life where I don't feel comfort in hoarding a lot of ingredients anymore, which is cool. It's cool to see myself change in real time. Thank you for your love and appreciation. I will cherish it always. I think the golden period of me being in the public eye of my life has passed, and for that I am thankful. It was not for me. It would have been very cool to participate in a TV show, which is what Delish wanted out of me, but it was not cool how they used HR to abuse the relationship. So, just like how they encourage you to leave abusive relationships, I encouraged myself to leave an abusive workplace. And when it became clear that they did not have my best interests at heart, despite them claiming that they did, I did not want to be gaslit anymore. So I called them out on their shit, and they were like, and I was like, okay, here we go. New stage of life. Do you think you date the same person, different face? How can I answer that? Do you think there are people who are the same person? Honestly, I think everyone is a little bit different. In what sense are we defining them to be the same? If you can qualify that question for me, then maybe I can answer more specifically, but no, I do not think I'm dating the same person with a different face. We're gonna go in with some black-eyed peas. Cool. This is some soft tofu that has been frozen and defrosted. We're going to drain it. Yeah, but how are we defining similar types? Like, you have to define these terms, right? This is when we start walking into these like very claustrophobic sort of frameworks of, I don't know. It just makes me feel weird when we say, like, and I think especially pop psychology has been affecting me greatly, so I've become more critical about what pop psych is saying. I've basically been very like eager to consume pop psych in the last year, and it's been 1 year of consuming it, and I think I'm also reaching the place where I'm just like, oh, maybe this is not helping me. Not in terms of like, oh, it's not helping me because it doesn't serve me, so I reject it, but it's like, I don't think it's helping me because it's actually making me, how do I say this? I think it might be making me pathologize myself. Like, a lot of the things that I want to do are, according to pop psych, red flags, right? And I think everything can be certainly toxic in aspects, but you also have to contextualize all of these behaviors and actions before you write them off totally. If we say that, you know, X, Y, and Z action is always a red flag, is that actually something that will help you understand other people, or is that something that will help you aggravate yourself and antagonize others? Because I'm coming at it from a place of, I want to date people because I want to learn about them and I want to understand them, and I want to be in a relationship with them where we are learning about each other together. And maybe we can help each other learn more about each other if they're open to it. That's my ideal partner, someone who is open to having almost like a therapeutic relationship with me and being open to discovering more about themselves and to question me in, you know, not like an aggressive way, but like to be like, hey, have you thought about this? And I feel like a lot of the pop psych advice just makes you write people off. High value, low value, men and women, like red flags, green flags, orange flags, whatever the fuck it is now. And it's just, it's nice to have labels to things when you're feeling lost and confused, much like all the queer identities, right? It helps you orient yourself and it helps you validate yourself. But at a certain point, which for me is a year from when I first started consuming all of this, at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, am I ready to graduate from this framework? Because I've learned what it has to teach me and I've incorporated some of it, but I'm also starting to feel like there is a frictional energy happening here that makes me feel like I should prune myself and punish myself for doing certain things without really understanding where these behaviors are coming from, but also what these behaviors ideally want to accomplish. And I think there is a time to intake, and then there's a time to digest, and then there's a time to leave it behind. So I am making a soup right now, I think, with salmon broth and tofu and beans and greens. Not to stereotype, but I think you'll need to start dating women if you want open-mindedness and dialogue. I don't disagree. And Erin doesn't disagree either. I was talking to Erin about this, and I was like, man, all my boyfriends think I'm annoying. And he's like, yeah, men just want to chill. And I was like, I can chill, but I can't just chill. You know what I mean? So I don't disagree with you. Not to be like gender essentialist, but also not to reject how gendered we've all become. I'm just cutting up some carrots and throwing them in there. Like, gender is not based in any sort of like fundamental reality, but we have made things not based in fundamental reality real. Gender is one of those things. So I do think that like people who have been socialized as men prefer a certain relationship dynamic that does not really satisfy me, if that makes sense. Like, I can do it. I can be in a relationship where we're just chill, but I will feel hungry for something that goes beyond the chill. I need some sort of like inquisitiveness that can be, at times, aggressive. And so I think I was talking about this with a friend, and I was like, I think men sublimate this aggressive energy that comes out in my verbal behavior into their sexual behavior. So they would prefer that I kind of just relegate my aggression, if you want to call it that, to the bedroom and not really act on it otherwise, intellectually or verbally. Because I wonder if it actually threatens them. And it makes them extremely uncomfortable when I do it, which would make sense. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm saying I understand why it would affect them in that way. But I'm also saying if that's true, then all of men's ideal romantic relationships with me would just be, for me, a friends with benefits status. I guess, but not ideal for me. So if I still have the energy to date, I'm going to try to find someone who would be down to satisfy my needs as well. Okay, give me all of your relationship advice. I love this. The strips on my counter are actually washi tape. This is like a 5-year-old roll of washi tape, and because of the heat, the tape started sticking to itself. I use the washi tape as date markers on all of my food items that I make at home, so that I know I made this on June 30th. Please use it before July 14th. But because the roll of tape was starting to stick to itself, I just decided to like tape it on my counter so that I can just rip off a piece as I need it, rather than destroying the whole roll as it continues to stick to itself. It might just stick to the countertop, but we won't know until we try. I just know that keeping that roll of tape in my junk drawer was not really conducive to me actually using the tape, so this was just an alternative to check out. One of my favorite things to buy at the farmer's market now is carrots, because when you buy the carrots, not only do you get carrots, you also get carrot greens, which I've been using in my smoothies. So that's been fun. All the veggies at the farmer's market range between $3 and $4 per bunch, so that is part of my staple weekly grocery haul now. Alright, what else do we have going on in here? No other real ingredients, so maybe some spices would be nice. Ooh. Maybe. Do we feel like gochujang, or do we feel like oyster sauce could be beneficial? What flavor vibes are we feeling for the soup? I need to go grab my laptop charger. BRB. Do I want to plug you into? If I plug you in there, I'm gonna fucking trip and die and kill myself. Alright, let's plug you in here. Self-awareness, it's important for safety, y'all. This last relationship has made me think about the importance of values alignment and political alignment. When I was in this relationship, I was pretty keen on the idea that we don't have to agree, that we could just live in difference. But in thinking about this breakup, it's interesting to think about the crossover between your political beliefs and how they translate into interpersonal beliefs, right? So this last ex, he claims that he loves capitalism, right? Clearly, a very different value system than my brain. And when he broke up with me, he gave me the courtesy of discussing certain things over text. He refused to meet in person to talk things out. And then, I did my usual thing of saying, like, all the thank yous for this relationship, that, I was grateful for having experienced certain lovely moments. And then, I don't know, maybe this, according to pop psychology, is toxic, but I like staying friends with my exes because my line of thought is, if I like this person enough to date them, to have them in my life, if I could have seen myself with them for the rest of my life at some point, then there is a key part of them that I value, that I connected with, and I wouldn't want to throw away all parts of that connection just because we don't work out romantically. He basically, I wouldn't say he ghosted me, but he stopped responding to my texts after a certain while, which I totally understand. But I left off with, if you liked me enough to stay friends, I would love that. He clearly does not like me enough to stay friends, or maybe I hurt him in some way and he just can't bear to see me. Either way, I think if it's the latter, then I am more inclined to feel like that's kind of childish and immature, especially considering some of the things that he said to me in the relationship led me to think that he really, really liked me. And then secondly, it just felt like a bit of a discard. Like, capitalistic views is, I'm going to use you if you're useful for production, for capital, for regeneration of capital, right? You have to serve a purpose under a capitalistic point of view, like at the job. When I ceased being of service to their ultimate goals of expansion and, I guess, exploitation of my labor, if you want to put it that way, they let me go. And so I almost feel like the way that we broke off and he didn't want any sort of contact with me was a very capitalistic discard, in the sense that once he discovered that I couldn't fulfill the role of his ideal partner in his life, that was it. Like, I was useless. There was no purpose for me to remain in his life anymore. And for me, that's just not how I want my world and my friends to be. As you know, I spent almost a decade with Aaron before we broke up, and he's still very much in my life. We hang out very regularly. I talk to him about all the stuff. He comes to help me out with my computer, and he gives me advice when I have fights with my dad. Like, we're very close, and we're very caring for each other's well-being. And I'm also still friends with my second ex. I don't see him as much, but like, we talk from time to time. And I really appreciate that, because it is truly the most heartbreaking part of a breakup for me when I feel completely rejected. And it wasn't just like a, we don't fit in this way, but I still like you. Getting completely cut off just feels like a variation of, you suck, I hate you, and I don't want to see you ever again, There was no curiosity in our difference anymore after a certain point, once he discovered that we were too different. That was it. So, I know there's a lot of couples who think that if you stay friends with your exes, that's a red flag. I think it's very important for me to not give into that narrative anymore. I've thought about it. I've thought about what would other people think if I told them that I'm still friends with my ex. And I think that the people who cannot withstand the fact and the reality that I really enjoy staying friends with my exes are not for me. Because I think they have a much more possessive look on relationships, and they have a ownership relationship to other people in a romantic context, and I'm just not cool with that. I would want my ideal partner to be open to talking to me about all sorts of things, especially if they have issues with my thoughts, my behaviors, my ideologies, and the way I live my life. And if they're willing to have that discussion and engagement with me instead of just outright judgment and rejection, that's the person for me. Back to spices. Did you guys recommend something? I'm so sorry. I stopped paying attention. We're gonna go in with some toasted onion. I have lost weight. I have lost mostly muscle weight because I have not worked out since January because of long COVID. My body is weaker now. So yeah, I have lost weight. Unfortunately, it's not like a healthy weight loss. It's just I'm losing all of my muscle mass. It's very sad, actually. Losing muscle mass, especially as you get older, is not good. Just in a lot of health respects. But I'm going to take it slow. I think, the genocide is still ongoing. I think even though a lot of us have stepped back from being more active about it and being engaged in it and immersed in it, it comes with censorship, it comes with time, it comes with burnout. Even though we have stopped being so active about it, I think we're still processing it. I think I'm still processing it. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to understand what the fuck is going on with our world, and I'm just, I don't have enough energy physically and mentally and spiritually right now. But yes, my body is changing. Hi. Oh, you're moving. I hope it's a smooth move. Grandma is grandma. Sometimes she's alert, sometimes she's not. She's definitely declining, for sure. Let me read somebody who loves capitalism in all quotes. Okay, people are voting gochujang, oyster, gochujang. Oh, very even split. Yes to both. You think gochujang would be better with Mexican herbs? Interesting. Yes, it definitely depends on the ex. Some do need to go no contact. For example, my first round of Hinge, the guy that I ended up liking was a textbook situationship where he said he really liked me and really liked spending time with me, but ghosted me on a night when we had something planned, and then violated my physical boundaries after he stated he didn't want to have a relationship with me. And so I completely blocked him, and he tried to get back in touch for the next year. I answered some emails, but I basically was like, the buck ends here, and he stopped bothering me since. But I don't disagree. Some people are not good for you, period. But for the people that you shared a genuine relationship and connection with, to just completely cut them out of your life, it makes me wonder, what did you have in mind for me? What did you want out of me that I couldn't provide that made you go, that's it, no more, 100% off? How would it feel if you dated someone who had the same views and same values? I think Aaron and I had pretty aligned views and values, right? It felt fine. Right now, I'm open to having same views, same values, and I'm also open to dating people with different views and different values, but I think we need to have some sort of commonality to hold us in place as a foundational element. Otherwise, we'll just be completely aggravated by each other all the time. I think if I were to date someone with completely different values, we would both need to be very open to exploring difference and enjoy that exploration of difference. And I think I didn't have that enjoyment of exploration of difference with this last ex, despite the fact that he said to me one day, I enjoy all our differences and similarities. sometimes people say things I think they want to believe it, myself included, that they don't actually act on. Yeah, regarding body comments, usually I think most people get a little triggered by it. I'm okay with it now. It doesn't really affect me. I'm happy to talk about it, and I think that's a sign of like me having moved through my own disordered eating issues and body image issues enough that like nothing really hurts me anymore, which is great, right? Because that's a sign of having been healed for me. I think when you get triggered, that means that part of you is still very wounded, and so you need to like stay away from it and make sure you don't infect it and aggravate it too much, and you give it time and space to do its own thing. So that's where I stand on body comments. But yeah, maybe for other people, not great. Keeping that in mind. Oyster sauce. I don't know if I can get this out. Oh, maybe I can. Yeah, the onion is crystallized. So Burlap and Barrel doesn't put any preservatives or like anti-caking agents in their spices, and the toasted onion is so like sugary, just naturally sugary, that it clumps. And when there's humidity in the air, like there is right now, it turns into a rock. So you can definitely put it in the freezer. Some people put it in the freezer. Some people put a silica packet in there. I just go at it with a fork. I think I need to put water in this and clear it out. Oh yeah, I did buy the boots. And if you watch one of my edited long form videos, it might have been the Lido one. Or the depression one, I can't remember, but one of them shows off the boots in the beginning of the video. And I've time-stamped all of my long-form videos, so you can scan the description to see which one has the boots show off. The boots are great, but I can't wear them for a very long time. They do just still give me blisters, even after a year. My feet are very difficult to work with. And also Birkenstocks has been purchased by the Louis Vuitton Corps. So they're not the same quality anymore. Their customer service is not as good anymore either. My shirt doesn't say anything. It's just fishies. Great. Yay. We finished off another condiment. I love this label, by the way. One of my favorite condiment labels. Yeah, people have recommended that I freeze them. Freeze the boots, apparently. But I just, no interest in doing that. Let's put in some garlic powder, shallot powder, all my favorites, all delicious. And all of this rumination post breakup is like, you know, like, my second breakup was really bad, guys. Like, I was stuck in it for a bit. And then this third relationship was much shorter, and I think I'm kind of like processing 2 relationships at once now, and it's really interesting because it's given me this chance to be like, what have you learned actually, and who do you want to be, and how do you want to proceed, which are all very important. And I think I just need to be even more upfront about my darker aspects, my more aggressive, combative, charged cynicism in my next profile. I remember the first time I was on Hinge, I went on a date with a viewer who gave me feedback on my dating app. And he apparently used to do consulting on these things. And he was just like, your profile is really, and he said it very nicely, but he was just like, your profile is very depressing. And I was like, yeah, I am a depressed person. And he was like, maybe next time try to be not so depressing. And I took it to heart. And I dialed it back, got into a relationship, and then I think my mental health was really triggering for that person. But I was still pretty honest about myself. So I think there was a key part of me that was communicated via my profile, that connected me with someone who did understand a key part of me. The third time I went back on Hinge, I don't think I was cynical either. I think I was very upfront about my communication preferences, which is I tend to communicate better via text, but I'm trying to be a better listener in person. And funnily enough, the person I ended up dating from that round of Hinge really did not like texting, like even less texting than my second ex. So I don't know if he didn't read my profile when he matched with me, which honestly, guys, if you're not reading profiles, that already shows that you're just not respecting the other person. I'm inclined to think that he didn't read my profile very accurate, like very closely, because he apparently did not realize I was asexual and demisexual until I talked about it in person. And then I was reading back some of our texts, and it was like a month into dating each other that he was like, I didn't read asexual or demisexual on your profile. And I was like, that's on you, bro. Thank you for the tone marker. I really appreciate that. I've been mulling over tone markers because I think they're gonna really help me. And I've been kind of telling other people about them without using them, and I think I have to start using them. Because you know how they say you have to be the change you want to see in the world? Well, instead of just telling other people about it, I think I have to lead by example of actually using them. And maybe after a year of using them, people will see the light. It's time for a frozen grape break. I bought these grapes for Grandma. She does not eat them. There are now fruit flies in her room because she just keeps them around and doesn't eat them. What does going for the draws mean? Like playing the lottery of matching people? Dan is still my friend. We never dated. And he actually just told me last month that I was such a bitch to him, like months after meeting him, that he had to take a friendship break from me, which I didn't learn until just last month. So I can be very bitchy, but the people who value me and like me will stay around. Dan and I are actually planning to see each other 7 p.m. tonight with another friend. And Dan is very involved in local politic activism. And he's been like a very strong influence in my life, because a lot of the local actions that I participate in is because of knowing Dan and the network of people that he hangs out with. So Hinge has been bringing all sorts of people into my life and all sorts of learning experiences into my life. And I know there are horror stories going around of what it feels like to date right now with all these dating apps, but I think it's just like you have to clarify in your mind that there is no free lunch. You have to know that everything is a gamble, and you have to be open to the possibilities. And I think if I were single-mindedly going on dating apps purely just to like find a life partner and settle down, and none of them are working out, I can totally see myself being like completely devastated. And not to say that the breakups don't devastate me, but I understand now that the devastation is a necessary price and process that I have to go through in order to be able to learn the things that I'm learning about myself and the world and other people and human interaction. So I'm trying to like see the fact that like just because you didn't ask for some things, that the universe will give them to you anyway, and then it's up to you to decide if you can make them into something that you weren't expecting anyway. I know that like that's a very optimistic outlook, but like I've been saying in my last few lives, I come off as very pessimistic and very cynical because I am, but at the core of it is an optimism that there is something holding us all together, and it's not all just nonsense. And I think a lot of us are afraid to really tap into that core because it opens us up to so much possibility that requires us to be invested in making those possibilities real. So people want convenience. People want things handed to them. I do too. I don't want to clean, but when the resistance, when you accept the things that you are trying to run away from, the resistance becomes less painful. The resistance can disappear if you can find peace within the process of living. And I think our society has made us think that we can prune our lives to be pure pleasure, but I don't actually think we want pure pleasure. See, Gary says I keep accidentally cutting my friends down when I'm on their side so the tone markers are handy. I think that's what's been happening in my relationships, is like I'm just debating with them, not trying to attack them, but because I like to play the devil's advocate, because that's a part of how I learn about perspective, they think I'm bashing them and their beliefs. And I'm just like, no. I'm trying to ask you to prove your beliefs so that I understand them, so that we can interact. The dynamic aspect of me trying to learn about the world feels aggressively violent for other people. So that's something that I've been trying to wrap my head around. Okay. Got it. When people want romance without the hardship, they're not gonna have a good time with me. Do you think you have childhood trauma? I mean, first of all, define trauma, but if we're defining trauma by pop psych standards, yes, doesn't everyone? I think being an immigrant twice before the age of 8 has severely impacted my outlooks on the world. Not to mention all that came with the circumstance of immigration, different culture, completely alienated from other people that I didn't understand linguistically, culturally. I had no friends to start with. Everybody was making fun of me and bullying me. My teachers were rejecting my homework assignments because I couldn't put them in the right grammatical terms, or, you know, imperial measurement system for a recipe book that my recipe was deemed unusable for. The fact that when I immigrated to the United States and they did the total body physical exam is when I found out I had IgA nephropathy, and then I dealt with years of trying to survive this autoimmune condition that scared the shit out of my parents. And that was all they and I were preoccupied for like 4 years. Yeah, a lot of it. The process of immigration. I didn't see my dad for 3 years when I was 3. When I was 4 to when I was 7, for the most part, I saw him once in all those years. Observing my mom's anxieties of not being able to keep in touch with my dad over those 3 years of long distance, because that was before emails and before cell phones. Yeah, of course. I have a lot of anxieties in life. I've observed a lot of things go wrong. I didn't have the worst childhood possible, but sure, we all get hurt, right? And we all don't realize how we got hurt. We just keep on growing into what society deemed us to be. And then at a certain point, we're like, oh, I don't feel good. And people who have resources can dedicate time and money to trying to figure that shit out, but some of us don't, and we push it off, and there are much more other pressing things for like literal existential survival. But what does it matter if we have childhood trauma or not, right? We live through it, we deal with it, we learn about it if we can, and we try to support the people we love through it. Yes, it is an American thing to fixate on tone. And actually, I think one of the things that I said to my most recent ex that really hurt him, in addition to my views on capitalism, I also said, wow, you're so American. And he mentioned that later in another text argument, I guess, before our final breakup, that like I had said he was so American and other things, and like that I had rejected him in that way. And I was just like, that is literally an observation. All these cultures come with it a certain protocol for behavior and social mores, and I still think he's very American. Yes, Jesse, yes, I'm also starting to learn that. So I'm trying to ask more questions, but sometimes even my questions hurt them because they don't want to think about it, right? And this is what my autistic friend Daisuke was saying. It's just like, he says, Daisuke's theory is that autistic people don't repress a lot of things, but more like neurotypical people just automatically repress. They have to repress in order to operate. This is like a difference in brains. And so because I don't repress, I ask all the questions that might be touching on things that they're trying to repress. And so when I ask them, I break their repression, and it feels aggressive to them because it feels painful for them to acknowledge those topics, which totally makes sense. I ask so many deep reaching questions. If you watch my lives, you know probably 95% of how my brain works. So imagine dealing with this brain on a daily basis in a close, intimate, romantic relationship. It's a lot. I understand it. So I'm trying to make it like a fun challenge for me to see if there are people out there who will actually appreciate this brain rather than be intimidated by it. Yes, I do tend to bruise a lot of egos, but I want them to bruise me back. So in this way, I like a BDSM dynamic in like a philosophical, existential, verbal sense, not necessarily sexually, because I'm just not well versed sexually as someone who's like more asexual on the spectrum. But I was really looking forward. He was very direct. He seemed to be able to answer all of my questions in the first few weeks. And it was very refreshing. So I expected more out of him. I expected him to like be able to pick up the dynamic with me in that way. I was waiting for him to like rise to the occasion, and instead he just tapped out. So I do think that there was an ego break of some sort. Like I went too far and he felt reflexively defensive, and that was it. I totally feel that was probably what happened. To what extent do we need to mask? It's also something that I've been asking myself, and I'm coming to the conclusion that I can't mask. Because if I mask, then I'm actually truly just making myself feel bad. And I think it's when I mask that my anxious attachment behaviors kick into place. Because it's when I mask that I'm denying myself, and by that self-denial, I am leading myself to second guess all of my actions that follow that self-denial. So when I start to betray myself and my own tendencies and my own like organic behaviors, is when I start to lose sight of who I'm supposed to be, and I turn to my partner to then ask for feedback in various ways of who they want me to be, and I start to try to mold myself to suit them. But that's when the relationship breaks, right? This is what I'm understanding right now, is like the relationship breaks because if I don't participate in it as me, it just becomes about them. That's not a relationship anymore. That's not dynamic anymore. A dynamic requires two people to participate. So if I'm just acquiescing completely and trying to suit their needs, then the relationship has already started deconstructing in a lot of ways. And when I can't trust myself to behave the way that I normally behave, and I start trusting someone else to tell me how to behave, either consciously or unconsciously or even subconsciously, that's just not good. That's what makes me anxious then, because I'm constantly looking to the other person for validation on whether or not I'm doing something right, and that just aggravates everything. Formidable. I haven't heard that word in a long time. I have been wondering about what the masculine dynamic is in these guys. What would you imagine would be ideal to complement your desire to remain unhinged? What a question. What would you imagine would be ideal to complement your desire? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out through dating, right? Like, I don't have an idea of what kind of person is available. I don't know what they're capable of until I meet them and engage with them. So dating is, at the end of the day, a gamble. I can't ensure victory by saying, oh yeah, I know exactly who I need and I know exactly what I want. Like, I don't. All right, let's think about this chocolate dessert. I have cassava flour. Also, how are we doing on my cell phone battery? 33%. Let me get my battery. Plug you in so I don't lose you after finally finding you. Oh my gosh. I was just telling Aaron yesterday what the things that my last ex said to me that feels in retrospect and in the moment like love bombing. Can't get over it. But now I know what people say and the actions that follow when they say shit that don't seem realistic. I wrote out this whole recipe of chocolate cake, but obviously we're not gonna follow the recipe, right? It's just not gonna happen. This is Talea. I don't know if you know Talea. It's a brewery local to Brooklyn, women owned, and their brews tend to be more female focused, meaning women like them more, which has turned out to be true when I go with guy friends and girlfriends. The girls like them more, so. Pretty bitter right now. A little bit spicy. There's chili in here. I'm thinking a little butter, a little coconut oil, new coconut oil, and we're gonna microwave this, right? So I'm gonna make the batter, and then we're gonna microwave like a small dish of it to see how it turns out. We'll do test batches. Wow, you know a lot of whiskey girls. I don't know any whiskey girls. That's fascinating. All right. 1 tablespoon of butter. 2 tablespoons of butter. 3 tablespoons of butter. Plus, how much coconut oil do we want? Okay, I'm gonna go with about an equal amount of coconut oil. So we're gonna go with like about 6 tablespoons of total fat. I'm gonna just melt this a little bit in a microwave. I don't like whiskey. I like rum. I can come around to gin, I think. Maybe not straight yet, but whiskey, I think I can do some bourbon for baking, but not my favorite. Sugar. We're going to use some muscovado sugar. $70 grams of sugar. And then cocoa. Where are you, cocoa? Grams of cocoa. That seems like a lot. That's 10 tablespoons. Just go ahead and give it a whisk for now. Taste to see the sweetness level. too sweet. We're going to add a little bit of salt. Then I'm going to crack in an egg. Reminds me of like a brownie batter already. Cool. All right, then we're just gonna add in the stout. This might be a lot of stout, we'll see. I'm gonna use half a cup first. Ooh. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. Interesting. All right, next we are going to do some baking powder. Wow, after I reorganized this, which I was expecting, I don't know where my stuff is anymore. Okay, found it. Okay, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Then 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, I tried to listen to the Charlie XCX album, and I get that everyone's in love with it. I still don't think it's my kind of music. Sorry, y'all. I'm not cool enough for you. Okay, I'm gonna go in with a cup of cassava flour. Let's see how the cup does. Now I know with gluten-free baking you should probably let the batter rest before you bake it, but we're not doing that. We're just going to bake it and see what happens. I'm just oiling the small ramekin that we're going to microwave it in. I don't know about this. We might have to add more beer. Well, let's try to bake this. That's it. We're just gonna bake like 2 tablespoons worth. Cook time, 45 seconds? 50 seconds? We'll see. Oh, I also didn't go live last week because I was at the Fancy Food Show on Sunday, which we will not be making a video this year. Burlap and Barrel actually had a booth there, so I was kind of working. I walked the show. It was really fun, as always. I was the only person wearing a mask that I saw. My coworkers said they saw someone else. And I was the only person that I saw who wore a keffiyeh. Very fascinating to think about that. It baked. It like even separated from the sides. Well, that's probably not the best decision. Sympathy is a knife. Okay, I'll try. Ooh, okay. I mean, it looks cakey and it feels cakey, but it is very hot. We're gonna let it cool for a sec. Promising though. It might be a little dry. Hi, Bulgaria. You know what? I'll put on Sympathy as a knife right now, and you'll get to see my reaction. Sympathy is... It's just not my music. Like it's not even about lyrics at this point. It's just like the musicality of it. I don't know. Okay. Gets funner. I also don't like her voice. I also don't like Lord's voice. If that gives you an idea of what kind of vocals I like. There's so much auto-tuning happening. I don't know. How is she live? Does she sound like this live? Or do they auto-tune her voice live too? It's just, I'm not like young and hip enough for this kind of music. I don't mean that in any sort of slight, offhanded way. I truly mean it. This feels too young for me, the music. I'm sure I like her lyrics though. We're the same age, but you know how they say age is a number? So we're not really the same age, you know what I mean? Like, we're the same number age, but we're not the same age. It's fun though. I can appreciate it. I'm sure if someone forced me to listen to this over and over again for 5 times in a row, I'll be like, yeah, it's cool. I love it. Lyrics are great. She's speaking some wisdom. Spitting facts. Whatever the kids say these days. The song never goes anywhere. Does that make sense? Like, there's no conclusion to the beat. Like, it builds up to the hook and chorus, and then it slinks back down. Musically, there's no progression here, so I feel like I'm stuck, and I feel like I haven't learned anything. It just feels like a rant, which is fine. It's so dry. We're gonna add in the rest of the beer. Oh my god. That's so dry. We might have to add in some milk too. But you see how I just gave that impression and critique of the song? I do that in relationships too. Did you notice how it made you feel when I gave that I don't like it and here's why? Because I think that's how I make people that I'm in relationships with feel. I'm just telling them how I feel. But because it's something that they like capitalism, it feels like an attack on what they like and associated with that who they are. So that's something that I've been thinking about. So for example, let's see what's been on my liked lists recently. Oh yeah, I just posted this on Instagram too. Into the Water by Takara, Takara, and Kamau, Kamau. Like, I'm also more into like slower BPM, R&B vibes. Yeah, just very different genres. But Karen, if that's true, if I have a reasonable, intelligent reason for my opinion that is hard to refute, that's even more hurtful for the other person. Because when we were talking about how people like to repress things, if I present them with a logical argument that is harder to refute than just a throwaway opinion, it is harder for them to fight back and keep things repressed. It is asking them and challenging them in a way, undesirably, to bring up all of their repressed, like, ugly stuff in order to refute my point. They have to, like, dig deep to really engage with me on that level, you know? So, like, just by default of me saying my stuff is already enough of a hurtful thing for them to receive. And I'm not saying I'm logical all the time. I can be very illogical sometimes. But I'm waiting for someone to call me out on my shit. And some of them just don't wanna. They don't wanna do that. Which I understand, but I wanna do that. So am I toxic? Maybe. Okay, I'll listen to 360. Wait, is it 360 or 365? Oh, it is 360. Okay. I'll cue it up. I'll listen to it. What do you mean if you have nothing to call out? In what sense? Oh, cake. Oh yeah, we're gonna need milk. I'm gonna do something extremely, extremely weird, which is I'm gonna throw the first cake that we baked back into the batter. Because it is so dry, I think we can just crumble it up. It'll be like a twice baked cake. Do you think this is a new thing that we're doing? Twice baked cake? Cut it up first, mush it up first. So it's so dry that it just crumbles into dust. Oh yeah, 360 is the bop, right? I thought it was 365, but this sounds like... I think we need more milk. What does So Julia mean though, and even in the context of the song? Help out your local grandma here. So, I'm not battling to win the battle. I'm battling because it's fun for me. I just need to find someone who also feels like quote-unquote battling is fun rather than interpreting it as an attack. I don't think people understand how much enjoyment I get from discussion, like heated discussion, because that's what makes me feel alive. And I think people might misunderstand it as me attacking them, but What if I just kept the batter and then I could bake myself a little cake when I want? Oh, Julia Fox. Wow, Cass. I don't know what that means. Sounds like she doesn't like you, but she's trying to not be a mean person, so she's paddling it with a little bit of sugary coating to reject you. That's how I would interpret that. Because if someone thinks I'm a great person, but she can't be around negativity, that means that she's saying I'm a negative person and she can't be around me. Okay, fair. I've gotten that. Oh, much better. Moister, for one. We're gonna let it cool too. Alright, I was also making a smoothie. Can you see like my ADHD tendencies happening in real time? Because they're happening. And I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of us can resonate with each other because you're still here watching my lives. So clearly there is something that appeals to you about these lives that many others have decided it's not for them, right? That was a little bit of black seed oil, which is also known as Nigella seed oil, which is something that a viewer recommended I add into my diet for immune health purposes after I started experiencing long COVID pretty badly. I'm gonna add in some frozen bananas. Yeah, I haven't even taken my supplements yet. Vitamin D, magnesium. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, let's see our cake. Much better. This tastes really good, y'all. It's not as sugary, so I can probably add a little more sugar or just drizzle it with condensed milk. I'm very, very happy with our microwave stout cake. Condensed milk. Smash it in there. We've got a winner. Yum. What a delightful thing we just made. Because it's gluten-free, I'm going to add a little more milk in here. And then I'm going to add the rest of the milk in my smoothie. Delightful. Okay, so for example, this is my kind of music too. It's like French new disco. Can you see it? Peur des filles. Is it scared of girls? Fear of girls? That's the artist name. Yes, fear of conflict is huge for me. That's also why I got fired. People were not okay with me bringing shit up. They just didn't want to have that discussion, period. Thank you for your comment, Elise. I'm so happy to hear that. That's awesome. Makes me very delighted. Here's what I drink every morning now. Just a lot of vegetables, some milk, some protein powder, some nigella seed oil, a little bit of spice, and some fruit. In this case, banana, because it's creamy and delicious and sweet. And I also bought 2 $1 bags of like super ripe bananas, so now I have enough bananas to last me for a whole week, and it made me so happy. I also like this song called Tempered Heart by Tiana Esperanza. It's just playing random songs from my liked libraries now, so. And here are all the songs I like. Recently, I had a friend of a viewer tell me about a platform that he's trying to make a thing in the US. It's called Hero Hero. And it's basically like Patreon and Instagram mashed together with no ads, and you can only see someone's stuff if you buy into their monthly subscription. And he was reaching out to me to try to see if he could get me to be a content creator on Hero Hero, which he started first in when he was still in Prague, I think. So that's where the bulk of the users are right now. He's trying to expand in the US. And he was asking me if I wanted to create video content on there and basically help him draw an audience. And I'm like really into the idea of helping like a startup social media alternative, almost like a newcomer, emerge in the market. But my soul doesn't feel alive anymore. I was trying to find a better word, but it's just like my soul is resting right now. It's not dead. My soul is not dead. My soul is observing and resting. But yeah, if anybody wants to have an alternative to Patreon, Hero. If you wanted to check it out. I also listened to Homeboy Sandman, which I learned is apparently called backpack rap. Hero.co. I think that's it, yeah. Homeboy Sandman. I like 3 songs off of this album. They're called News to Me, Let Go, and Get Yours. This is the album art. It's called Still Champion. If you're buying what they're supplying, you're missing the plot, he just said. Man, I really wanted to have a relationship with someone who claims they love capitalism. That was so juicy. That would have been delightful. I'm so bummed. I also really did like him. Sad. I'm hilarious. I'm a really hilarious person. Sometimes I laugh at myself. I'm abandoning my ethics for the memes. And it's funny that you bring that up because on one of our last in-person dates, he suddenly turned to me after a dinner we had where we kind of had like a little tiff about capitalism, of course, where I like said very loudly, I don't care about businesses. He was like, have you ever thought about the phrase doing it for the plot? So I do wonder if both of us were kind of doing it for the plot. But no, I mean, life is the plot. I'm not abandoning my ethics or anything. My ethics are constantly in flux. I don't mind having them challenged. That is how I evolve, right? That's how we grow. Like, if we don't get challenged on our shit, then how do we continue to understand that it's the truth for us? We can't be afraid of standing by our truths and having other people inspect it. Because if you are afraid of other people inspecting it, then that means that you actually don't believe in it. Where is your confidence in your truth if you can't have other people challenge you on it? That's the way I think about it. Okay, Sabrina, I also want a relationship, but are you sure you just want a relationship, or are you seeking something from that relationship? Because it's easy to just have a relationship, but it's not easy to be on the same page as the other person regarding what this relationship is about. What are you both getting out of it? Here's a song that is most similar to Charlie XCX. It's called Who Put the Bomb, but I don't know how to say the artist's name, but that's the artist's name. The song is called Who Put the Bomb. So maybe you might like this. This is like a laid-back version of Charlie XCX. Thank you, Gary, for being my Shazam. Okay, I'm trying to wait for the Instant Pot to release enough pressure so we can taste it. So we're just gonna sip on our smoothie and hang out until it releases pressure. Hopefully before another half hour is up. Because I would like to go read my book. Because, y'all, I decided, as my intuition was telling me that it was way too early to date just 2 weeks after getting dumped in January, that this time I'm going to give myself a rule. A friend and an ex-coworker both lent me a book, and I told myself, you cannot go back on the dating apps until you finish reading these 2 books. So now I have motivation to, 1, chillax and think about what I've learned from my last 2 previous relationships, and also to read some books that have nothing to do with romantic relationships for the most part. It comes up, but... And Jesse, I actually love having my opinions shook up. In a lot of ways, it makes me feel less hopeless, right? What I loved about my last relationship was that I think he and I both understood how sad and bad and nonsensical and horrible and violent the world is. But he chose differently. He chose to go down a different path of perspective than I did, and he decided that, like, all you can do is be nice and support the people in your immediate vicinity, which I appreciated that outlook. You know, we weren't aligned on value, but I think he was a person that I truly, truly appreciated and liked, and I really liked getting his perspective that was different from mine on things. And I think that relationship taught me that I can't date someone who is exactly in line with all of my views, because I would then just be mired in my own cynicism, which I also appreciate. But I appreciate balance, a little salty, a little sweet, a little bitterness to bring out the other flavors as well. The nuance of the most delicious cocktails doesn't involve just one straight liquor, right? You have to kind of compose them. And depending on who's making the cocktail too, the same cocktail following the same recipes might not be shaken enough or in the same way, might not be served in the same glass. It all affects the taste and it all affects the experience. So I have to keep in mind that dating is fun for me. Not just dating to find someone, not just landing someone to be with, but the process of dating is fun for me. I have to keep reminding myself that it's not always about the end goal and reaping the rewards, that like there is enough entertainment and learning experience in just interacting with strangers that will open up my worldview beyond what I can conceptualize now. The expansion of horizons, the expansion of the universe, the expansion of time, the expansion of meaning, the expansion of self. Because to stay the same is a sort of death. And so to stay alive is to change. And that's actually when I realized in discussing capitalism with my ex that like he wasn't as open to change as I was, because he was worried that once he became rich, I would dump him because I don't like rich people. And I said, no, that's not it. You know, like I think if you become rich, your lifestyle will change and you will have problems with the way that I prefer to live. I buy dollar bananas that are close to rotten. Like, is that gonna make you feel like, you know, like there's just gonna be more difference? And he was insistent on the fact that, like, even if he had more money, he'll be the same person. And I don't believe in that, because I believe even if you don't have a change in financial status, you will still change. We are just changing with or without our permission. And so when I realized that he thought he would always be stagnant, and he was so certain in saying that like, you know, that's where our split is. It's not about our values or perspective. It's about our willingness to be evolving. So it's always, labels are just labels. You can even be a Trump supporter as long as you're willing to discuss with me why you support him. I'm not going to write you off just because you voted for Trump, because my own mother was ready to vote for Trump before I talked her away from it, you know? Like, but I need you to be able to talk and engage with me and explain me your mind, rather than just saying, well, this is the truth, this is the better option, this is definitely the right way to go. No, I'm not interested in being right or wrong. I'm interested in talking about it. Vegetarian recipes? Literally the thing that I just made in the Instant Pot, if you don't use salmon broth and use literally any other liquid, it can be vegetarian. I don't do recipes, girl. Let me bring out the books. Okay, this one is from Daisuke. It's written by also a late diagnosed autistic person. Look Me in the Eye by John Elder Robison, and subtitle is My Life with Asperger's. His brother wrote Running with Scissors. So I didn't read or watch Running with Scissors, but I guess they're writers in the family. I don't love the book, but I love reading segments. Like, I don't love the writing, but I like the moments of interpersonal conflict that he goes through. That reminds me a lot of my own experiences. For example, he says, I now know that my logically derived responses to statements like Lori's sometimes come off as intrusive or prying. That makes no sense at all to me. I framed the first relevant question that came to mind after hearing her speak. My response was friendly. So why was she disturbed? After all, she brought the whole thing up. In my opinion, people should not make statements unless they are prepared to respond to questions about the words they utter. But the world doesn't always work that way. Thinking about conversations like the one I had with Lori makes me mad. People approach me uninvited and make unsolicited statements. When they don't get the response they expect, they become indignant. If I offer no response at all, they become indignant at that. So there is no way for me to win. Given that line of reasoning, why talk to people at all? Many autistic people don't, possibly for that very reason. But for some reason, I want the Loris of the world to like me, to not think I'm weird. I can be eccentric, but I don't want to be weird. So I persist. I try to say things a normal person would say. And this one, my coworker Zach, aka the just completely incomparable Zach, responsible for editing Budget Eats, gave me. It's called On the Line, A Story of Class, Solidarity, and Two Women's Epic Fight to Build a Union by Daisy Pitkin. And obviously Zach and I were like kind of at the forefront of leading the unionization charge at Delish, along with Lena and Brandon, and Zach and I were like kind of the last two people standing. So when I got fired, it was like Zach, and then now it's Zach and other folks on the team. It's rough. Like even after you unionize, it's rough. I've been hearing updates from them, and Hearst is still doing the most to prevent people from actually feeling like they have the protection of a union. They're punishing people who unionize now, in various ways, by refusing to give them a raise because they up the, you know, the bottom line of salaries. But yeah, I haven't started this one yet. I like did 2 pages and I was like, I can't do 2 books at once. So I won't be on a dating app until at least 6 weeks from now. How did I find out I'm on the spectrum? I don't know if I am, but I guess we all are on the spectrum technically. But basically how it started was some of the viewers here actually said, maybe? They actually said Aaron was on the spectrum first. And then I had my college friend Natalia reach out to me after I got fired. And right around the time of when the genocide happened, actually, she was like, have you? And it was when I started posting about Palestine, like very fiercely on Instagram. And she was like, I think you might be autistic. And I was like, why? And she was like, just take this test. And it was like the RAD test. And I tested borderline. That test itself has a lot of problems. Like I can't really pick the right answer every time because some of the answers just don't fit. But like, I think I scored like 110 or something. But she was like, yeah, you might want to check out some anecdotes, because she was like, later on in life, especially with women, it's harder to get diagnosed as autistic because like you've learned to mask really well your whole life, right? And so I talked about this with my friend Daisuke, who it turns out is autistic. And I was like, well, what do you think? And he was like, usually if people get along with me, they're probably they're not all autistic, but like, you know, it's a sign. And when someone get along with me and we can talk. And he was like talking to me, and like a lot of the things we talk about, we share very similar experiences of. And he's also Asian. He was born in Japan, you know? So it's like we not only share possibly being on the spectrum, but also an Asian background, an Asian immigrant background. Like also culture plays a lot into this, you know? What's considered an eating disorder in the States is not an eating disorder in East Asia. It's just like normal, you know? When you're fat, you're supposed to diet. Like that's the East Asian mentality. If you bring that mentality here in America with our, you know, body positive, body love movement, people are gonna like fucking lose their minds if you say that shit. So it's just considering the differences, again, across culture, across class, just all sorts of things that affect how you move through the world. So I don't know. I think maybe talk to people who are diagnosed, and just find community there. Just find conversation there. It's truly helped me a lot to just be able to talk to Daisuke about some things, because I'm like, I just got dumped again. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And he's just like asking me questions that help me explore about, well, what do you seek out of dating? What do you want out of a relationship? Like, do you need one? Or is it, he calls it a MacGuffin, you know, when they throw something into the plot of a show just to move it along, but like that's not at all the meaningful aspect of the plot. So it was like, are relationships a MacGuffin for you? Like, what is it a stand-in for? And I honestly think he had a point, because I think not only do I have a difficult time conversing with people sometimes without them feeling offended, I think it might come out of my early life experiences as an immigrant, not having language. And now that I finally have language, I'm like, this is what I've been missing, right? Now I have it. I should totally be able to be on the same page with other people and be accepted and have them love me, because they used to reject me when I didn't have language and when I didn't have culture that aligns with theirs. And now I have them both. I have all the tools I need to succeed. So now I should be able to succeed, right? And I think romantic relationships have become this like symbol for me of like, if I can find someone who loves me and accepts me and appreciates me and take in all of me, then I can finally feel accepted. Because all my life I've been progressing from that child who was constantly rejected by others because she couldn't speak, she couldn't be understood, she couldn't be accepted, for her weirdness. You know, people laughed at my haircut, people laughed at my clothes, people, you know, even when I was working as an adult after college, I had coworkers make fun of me and the food that I brought for lunch. Like, I brought oatmeal every day. I really liked oatmeal. They made fun of me for bringing oatmeal in for lunch. So it's just constantly been building up this dynamic of people are gonna reject me. What do I do with it? Do I try to appease to them to be accepted, or do I just stand my ground and be even weirder? Because they're not gonna accept me anyway, so I might as well be out there, right? So a lot of my personality has been reactively built based on that rejection. And now I think as I get older and I'm looking for a romantic relationship, like, that romantic connection has become this stand-in for proof that I could finally be accepted at my most vulnerable, at my most whole display of who I am. You know, so it's like, it goes beyond friendship because there's a physical intimacy part. And that's also tied to like my more asexual orientation. So I'm trying to like open up the asexuality part of myself a little bit in relationship. And that's just like all these different dynamics coming together. You mentioned childhood trauma. You mentioned cultural gaps. Maybe there's neurodivergence. I don't fucking know. There's also mental health, right? There's also body image problems. And maybe all of these are kind of connected too within each other. So who knows? But talk to people who actually care to understand you and maybe can share some experiences that resonate with you, that is less mainstream, that is maybe even taboo, that is considered rude. Not everyone will consider what you say and how you behave to be rude. It is very cultural. I've been told that Europeans would probably appreciate my way of communicating too. I was talking with the founder of Hero Hero the other day. He like wanted to meet up to talk about this platform, and I met up with him and I was explaining to him all my critiques of, you know, New York City and American culture in general, and he was like, yeah, you belong in Europe. You know? So you're not wrong, you're just different in the context that you currently are, and they don't like that difference, so they reject you, and they give you a label to justify why they've rejected you so that they can feel safer in their identity, because you being different are an affront to their identity and their feeling of safety in their identity. You are by default of being different, challenging them on whether or not how they behave is right. So those who are very insecure will defend against your perceived affronts even stronger than those who are more secure in who they are. If you guys are all autistic, I have no clue of what my bones know, but I will look it up. Thank you. I've actually stopped seeing my therapist. I'm sure I can go back to him anytime, as long as he's still alive. I wish him well. I love him. Tom, thank you. But I stopped seeing him in January because I had like an emergency session with him, because when I got dumped, I was spiraling so hard. And he was like, wow, like, I was worried based on your email when you reached out. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay, but I just need to like talk about this relationship ending. And I also need to talk about like, what do you think? Do you think it's possible that I have OCD and or that I'm autistic? And he was just like, no. And I was like so shocked and taken aback by like how clear he was in answering that. He was just like, well, you know, you seem to respond to our conversation really well, and you can carry this dynamic, social dynamic. I don't see how you can be autistic. And I was just like, I don't know, like, I was expecting him to like explore things with me a little bit more. And I'm sure I could have asked him that. He's very open. But like, I think I was in a state where I was just like, oh, he doesn't understand either. So maybe I take a break and I go to other sources. And it turns out sometimes, instead of therapy, if you have friends who care about you in all of your ups and downs, who care to learn about who you are and who care to like commiserate and conversate with you, that it can be better than therapy in terms of what you need in that moment. I'm not saying friends override therapists every time. I'm just saying for every moment in your life, you might need a different assist. You might need a different solution. You might need a different direction. And I'm asking us all to challenge therapy culture right now, because it's not the solution for everything. There is no one size fits all for all solutions. And you have to remember that all doctors are just people with their own biases and their own backgrounds and their own philosophies, and their own outlooks. So if one therapist isn't working and you want to make it work, then find another therapist and explore that. Or maybe just find a friend. Or maybe just read a book. Because the stuff that you're going through now is probably not really that new, although it is unique to you. Common themes emerge within all of us, and that's how we connect to other people. So it can be like a really fun, albeit painful and confusing and convoluted journey to like understanding what you're going through. I'm hesitant to call it a problem. It's not. It's just the process of learning of what's going on within you and around you. Remember that we can't ever be dissected fully from our environment. So when people are constantly telling me to like feel better, to like pull myself out of the funk, and I'm just like, but the world is on fire. And then a lot of people are like, yeah, I know that, but we have to do differently. And I'm just like, what if we stop doing things for a while? What if we just like sink for a little bit? Can you have faith in the fact that you can allow yourself to just sink and still be able to float back up when you're ready for it? Why do we have to rush this process? Why can't we be accepting of the fact that we have ups and downs, just like the economy, just like the cycle of seasons, just like life and death? The fact that we have to be up and up and up all the time is unhealthy in my view, because it's a core rejection of what life is. Life is not always up and up and up. That's it. Everything else that we institute for ourselves to stay at a certain standard is artificial. That's why it's so exhausting to be alive, because you feel like you always have to be performing at this level, otherwise you're broken, and then you go to fix yourself. You're not broken though. Like, it's fine to be broken, but like, it's not your fault that you're broken. You're just broken. Because sometimes you need to be broken, because that's out of our control. And some people break earlier and sooner than others, just like some electronics break earlier and sooner than others. It's, again, not your fault. It's just sometimes how we were made, and that's not anything we had to say in either. Your birth, your genetics, your culture, your change of culture, the rejection that you experience by others, like so many of these things are not because of things that we've done. It's just circumstance. And yeah, it sucks to not have control over that. And it sucks especially to not have control over that when we're living in a culture that constantly barrages us with this message that you're supposed to have control over it all the time, or else you're the one who's at fault. Like, tiring, exhausting. That's why I stand for sadness and depressiveness and cynicism and pessimism, because I don't think there's enough representation of that. I'm not encouraging people to be this way. I'm just saying don't deny yourself the ability to be all of these things beyond what society is trying to sell you. In addition to, just like when Nicole, the binge eating therapist that I recommended a while back, just like how she was like, it's not about restricting what foods you eat, it's about adding to your diet. what your body wants and needs. And again, it's not about restricting ourselves from sadness and depression and cynicism and pessimism. It's about adding to it. It's about this and, not this or. It's not an ultimatum. And I wish my ex understood that. It's not an ultimatum for us to have different stances on capitalism. You just have to be open to us coexisting together with different viewpoints, and you have to allow me to have my own truth in addition to yours. And I may not agree with your truth and you may not agree with my truth, but why can't we enjoy each other's company and differences in disagreement? It's not like I hate you for doing what you do. It's just that I understand you have a different perspective on life, and sometimes I don't love it, but that doesn't mean you're any less right or wrong. It just means that, like, I can't do that myself. But I'll watch you do it. And I might even support you in your endeavors, to a certain degree. But maybe once you have Pepsi, Coca-Cola money, you don't need my support. If therapy isn't working for you, take a break and try something else. American communication is indirect sometimes. And I thought American communication was way better than Chinese communication, which is like so closeted and euphemisms. Even intentions are hidden as a cultural default, which makes me feel so betrayed sometimes when I learn people's actual intentions. But it's the same way in America. And as we can see, America is trending towards the authoritarian laws that China has been doing for decades. Hiding numbers of casualties from Palestine, restricting freedom of speech, labeling everything as anti-Semitism when it doesn't serve their political machine's purposes, like complete restriction when they are losing power. This is what happens, right? We're constantly at different points of the crux here. We're constantly making choices. So people will make the choice they need to make. You make the choice you need to make. You draw the bottom line for yourself, what is acceptable and what isn't in life. And remember that everyone's life will end. So just keep the finish line in mind. Don't ever think that any choice that you make will result in death, when death will happen regardless of what choices you make. What does sink mean? Sometimes when I get really depressed, it feels like I'm sinking down into myself. If you watched Get Out, the sunken place is kind of what that feels like for me. I don't exactly know in the context of Get Out, like, and the racial dynamics explored within Get Out, what the sunken place meant for those characters. But for me, the sunken place is very real in terms of just like being barraged by society in such a way with courtesy and mores that you're supposed to adhere to, that like you just kind of like give up. And I definitely sank when the genocide started happening and getting worse. Like, I just felt the weight of reality hitting me that like our world functions like this. And not only do we allow it to function like this, we have no choice but to go along with it. And it's kind of like being pulled into a riptide and being dragged down under. And sometimes you can try to fight it through self-denial. From a psychological point of view, I think a lot of people do. They're just like, I have to concentrate on my own well-being. I have to concentrate on my own life and my own family, and I have to keep going to work, and I have to keep doing that because I need money. I get it. right? I'm coming from a more privileged place than a lot of people because I have security of housing, so I don't really need to worry about losing income because I have security of housing. But for those of us who don't, like, I get it. So I'm not blaming people for carrying on with their lives. I just acknowledge the fact that this is the way our world works and that not everyone can have even a choice of deciding whether or not to speak up about the genocide. And that's what caused me to sink. Because I had no one to blame. And I realized that we were all in this whirlpool. Yes, I think my ex did think he was right. Because, and I have to pee, but I'll read you this segment that he sent me that I showed Aaron, and Aaron was like, I would not have used that word. And I was like, So I'm going to read you this text, then I'm going to go pee, and then I'm going to eat the soup, and then I'm going to sign off. Okay. He said, I said you attacked the relationship by constantly stating this won't work, which I don't remember saying, and explaining how I'm too American, which I did say. Your misunderstandings of capitalism was the catalyst of our fight, not my misunderstanding of you. I didn't bring up a single issue, and yes, by stating how you couldn't align with someone who would take ad money is a direct attack on exactly what I want to do. So he believed that I misunderstood capitalism. I think we're all on the same page of what capitalism is, right here? He was sweet and a little bit childish. And that's what I liked. So it's funny because we like things that don't work for us, right? Is what I'm learning. Yeah, it's, if you want to hear more, Earlier, before our breakup, he said, "It's not a matter of being candid. I appreciate your blunt honesty. I'm concerned with you fundamentally hating who I am and what I represent." And I said, "I don't hate you at all. I quite like you. It would be rather silly to be spending time with someone I fundamentally hate, wouldn't it? What do you represent?" And he said, "Capitalism." And I said, "Do you?" I said, "We're all products of capitalism, so we all reflect capitalism. But do you intend on repping capitalism? Let me reword. Do you love capitalism?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "I see." And I asked him, "Do you fundamentally hate who I am and what I represent?" By the way, at this point, I have been wearing my keffiyeh every time when I go out, every time I've seen him. We've talked about Palestine. I talked about Palestine on our first date. So I asked him, "Do you fundamentally hate who I am and what I represent?" He said, "Not at all." I said, "Do you enjoy our differences, or do they disturb, unsettle, and discomfort you?" He said, "I enjoy our differences and similarities." I said, "I don't see a problem here then. You worried?" He said, "Very much so." I said, "What about? What do you desire out of a relationship that you think won't be fulfilled by ours?" He doesn't answer this. He says, "How do you feel about my love for capitalism?" I said, "Weird. I don't understand it. It's a learning experience for me." I asked him, "Do you want to be with someone who's equally enthusiastic about capitalism?" He said, "Not necessarily." He asks, "Do you want someone with your views on capitalism?" I said, "I have people with my views on capitalism. I'm not dating them, but I like being around them. I think our dynamic is hilariously politically kinky, LOL." He said, "You mean it's taboo?" I said, "I don't think kink has to be necessarily as socially extreme as taboo. Unconventional, though, and also kinky as in the pure adjective form of having kinks or twists. It's a little topsy-curvy." And then I asked him, "Are you into it?" And he said, "Yeah." Guys, I'm so confused. Okay, sorry. Thank you for listening to me rant. We're gonna have soup now. And then like 2 weeks later, we're done. What did I miss, y'all? Tell me what I missed. Flamingo stand. I don't know if I'm hypermobile, but apparently a lot of people who like are at risk for like really bad long COVID are hypermobile. There's like a syndrome that I can't pronounce. It's like something syndrome, where you have like hypermobility and your joints are like super flexible. I don't know. Good luck to us. Yes. Exactly, Nalco. It's that syndrome. Gary says, "I don't want to pathologize, but do all straight men view women as a challenge?" Yeah, are they trying to win us over or something? And are they like offended that we try to engage them on their level back? And maybe sometimes we're stronger? Just curious, how much is this soup today? The tofu I think was about $1.50. The salmon broth is made from a $1 bag of salmon, so like a quarter. The greens are probably the most expensive part. I'm gonna say they were about $2.50 from the farmer's market. Carrots are also from the farmer's market, so I used about maybe like $1 worth. And then beans, very cheap beans, I used probably 1/10 of the bag, so maybe 30 cents. I don't know if anybody's done the math on that, but that's how much it cost. Plus a little bit of burlap and barrel spices that I technically got for free, but would be about $10 a jar that I used maybe 1% of. So 10 cents. Yes, Naoko. I've been thinking about this. Especially because on my dating apps, I've been putting my Chinese name in Chinese characters because I didn't want people to like recognize June and my face immediately. But I think my presentation of being like a pretty, you know, stereotypical small Asian girl with an Asian name is unconsciously or consciously making people think that I'm like a sweet, docile, sweet Asian girl, which I'm not. So which is why I have been slowly writing my dating profile as it comes to me. And as soon as I finish those 2 books, I'm gonna get back on there and my profile is gonna be aggressive. Y'all, it's gonna be aggressive. For example, if you want a taste of the core of my profile, the line that I'm most proud of is, did I delete it? Whoopsies. Oh yeah, okay. This is gonna be the core of my profile. Just your run-of-the-mill, good girl, crazy bitch, cynical C-word combo. I can't say the C word anymore because YouTube will flag it, but there you go. Because guess what, guys? We're not just all one person the entirety of our lives. We contain multitudes, right? So understand that when you get into a relationship with someone, they're not going to be stagnant. They're going to be in flux. And I have very many sides of me that I think people are passing up because they can't afford to know all of me in a lot of ways, which I understand. I may have cheap taste, but I'm very expensive to upkeep psychologically, spiritually, and mentally. I haven't read it, but I'll look it up. It might surprise you to know I don't read a lot. But guess what, y'all? The soup is delicious. The greens from the farmer's market are carrying the entire soup. The flavor is infused in here. It's a little bit thymy. It's a little bit celery-like. It's a little bit floral. It's a little bit citrusy, and it adds so much dimension. I'm very pleased. I thank you all for joining me on this Sunday afternoon, and I wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll finish those books and we'll go wreck some more hearts, okay? Take care of yourselves. Oh, actually, do you want to see me feed Memo? Maybe Memo will come out. Let's feed Memo. He only eats Fancy Fist. Fancy Fist. Oh, this is also a good song that just came on. It's called High Priest by Jacob Allen. Yeah, exactly. He won't eat Friskies anymore. It's crazy. This Fancy Feast is like double expensive. His food costs more than my food. I keep doing this to myself. Let's see if we can lure him out. Memo, you want to come out for a treat? Where are you? Memo, come out. Treat, treat. Come on. I don't know if he's going to cooperate, guys. He's so cute though. He's in my closet right now. I don't know if you can see him. Memo, come out. Can't force a cat. I've been trying to squeeze a little bit of cat toothpaste onto his treats because he obviously won't let me brush his teeth. So I just put a little dab. I ice his treats. All right, well, follow me on Instagram if you want to see Memo. He clearly doesn't like strangers in his space. Even if they're virtual and invisible, he can sense it because he's a cat. But yeah, sorry for the false cat bait. Sorry for catfishing y'all. Okay, bye guys. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great week.